Right. So community in our angle is a microcosm of an economy in itself, which means that
Mm-hmm.
the supply side of the skills, which is what we are trying to create, right? Like growth professionals, right?
Yeah.
So that skill is what we are espousing. And the demand side, we act like a talent agent for the skill that we are creating, right? So essentially, if you look at an economy that has a supply of labor and the demand side is the market, which takes care of movement of labor. So a community that's like, put together at a very minute scale becomes a community essentially, right? So how do we go about creating these skills? So we do, uh, like podcast sessions like this, where we bring in people from the industry and from academia, because like researchers, and they typically work on the cutting edge stuff, right? Like
Yeah.
one person that we're talking to is now thinking about neuromarketing. Okay, so like basically doing an fMRI scan when you're like showing ads to a person. Okay, like things are at that level, at least on the research front, right?
Yeah.
So academics and practitioners who come and share their knowledge with us, that's one stream of learning for us. And the other thing, of course, is like we have a newsletter, and we want the newsletter to be of high quality. So what we do is we take in research papers and we try to apply it in the brands that we're trying to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where the next side comes in, because like once you understand the theory part, you have to execute it to make sure this learning is completed, right?
Yeah.
So in execution part, what we are now doing is we took like 15 apprentices, and then we have like 6 brands. So these apprentices are put into teams of 3, and they are working on growing each of these brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like an underlying framework behind it, which is called the growth engine framework. So we kind of follow that. And it's been 40 days. So before you popped in, like we were just doing a review of, how these brands are growing, what was the baseline. So we started like 40 days back with this entire team that's over here.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically we were just talking about that. So these are 2 sides, right? So we learn through experts sitting and listening. We learn through research papers, and we learn through practicing it.
Yeah.
Which is like literally writing ad copies and then putting it, promoting it, and then you measure it and then you optimize it, the whole cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's what we are trying to do. Any thoughts, questions till now?
No, sounds exciting. I mean, yeah, I wish I had a community like this when I was just starting out in my career. It would have been really great. But I just think that it's now, because we're all so very well connected. Say 10 years back, the only sort of marketing community you had is what you built in the school, or
Right.
what you learned from reading other blogs.
Mhm.
Right. And now there's just so much more, and it's changing so quickly. The more you know, the more you learn, and technology is just making things change that much faster, right? So the more case studies that you keep reading, and the more that you keep learning about what brands are doing, I think that just adds to the things that you can sort of work on when you have the opportunity to.
But I mean, if you're interested, you can join a community at multiple levels. Okay, one of the small groups, teams are there. We typically try to tie them to one mentor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Right. So that's one way. The other thing is something like we haven't shown this to anyone yet, apart from our internal community. So we are doing something called Mag Levitate, right? Mag is mad about growth, levitate, Mag love trains. So think of it like Shark Tank, but how in Shark Tanks at the end of the pitch, people get money. In our case, people get our consultative execution.
Okay.
Right. So, brands, basically they fill up a form. So we try to understand at what stage of growth that they are in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we send them a base template, because this is not an investor pitch. It's a growth, right? So we try to ask them, say, what are your bottlenecks with respect to growth right now, right? And what have you planned for the next 3 to 6 months to remove these bottlenecks? And then, so that kind of fills up this like 7, 8 slides that we kind of give to them. And they come and pitch to us. Okay, now who are they pitching to? They are pitching to the podcast host, essentially, right? And our community mentors, right? So how we have structured a content piece is because we have growth as a function of sales, marketing, and strategy. We start every month with marketing related posts. That's why, you are here because you're a marketing person. And then the post that you have written this week was around ad copies, right?
Yeah.
Next week, it will be around sales, and a sales related expert will be there. And after that, it's strategy. So 3 weeks done. The fourth week is when this pitch will happen. Same, it's kind of like this, people pitch and then the team is there. And we try to decide whether we are going to take them up as a community execution project or not.
Right.
So that's one more way that you can be part of a community, right? So it's never too late in a community, right? Okay, cool. So it's already been 15 minutes. So if you don't have any other questions, we will quickly jump into, the usuals of reading your bio, and we'll get into what brought you here, essentially, in terms of career, right? Like, what was your career trajectory? And then we'll get into ad copies.
Okay, sure.
Okay, all right, cool, great. Okay, so just, in the interest of everyone to know who we are talking to. So this is the fourth episode of Mad About Growth's podcast. So we have Purva with us. So Purva is a marketer, so this is in her words. So marketer with a diverse experience across advertising, consumer durables, and media. The range best summarized as toys to tech. Passionate about the intersection of technology, consumer, and brand. Presently at Google, managing large streaming players initiatives, should we guess, for digital branding and scale customer acquisition. Previously led subscription marketing for Hotstar's international business. Oh, I can see it. Also built iconic kids brands, Hot Wheels, Uno, and Barbie in India through strategic marketing at Mattel Toys. Wow. When not spending time with my family and pets, I climb mountains for fun. Oh, man. We have a community called Stop Being Boring. The moment I read this, I feel like I'm the most boring person here. Okay. All right. This is pretty impressive. I know you can't say the brand's name, but of course, everyone knows what we're talking about here, which we'll come to. Okay. So now tell us, Pua, about your childhood and then like college and essentially marketing.
Sure. Yeah. So I had an interesting childhood because I moved schools every year almost. I think I've changed about 11 schools in 12 years. My dad was in the army, so we moved around quite a bit.
Okay.
And yeah, so I don't know. I can't really pinpoint when it is that I started being interested in brands, but I do recall that I have a very keen memory for every ad I'd ever seen. And this is before I knew that branding is a thing or marketing is a thing, right? This is when, whatever, you're 15, 16, and the only opportunities in front of you in terms of career were engineers, doctors, I don't know, pilots, etc. And I was on my way to become a pilot because my father's a pilot, and I thought that that's the road, that's the way to go. But then we moved to Bombay, and I moved to Bombay for my studies after my dad was sort of leaving the army. And Bombay is a completely new, entirely different space, right? That's when I went to college. That's when I got interested in mass media and communication as a subject. That's where I built my own contacts, and that's what they say, right? Like I did not have any contacts in Bombay for advertising or for marketing, but I made those sort of connections, and I landed an internship at Ogilvy and Mather, like way back. And then my first job was in fact with them. So I started off with O&M when I was barely like 19 or 20.
Okay.
And I worked with them for a year. And then I decided that, okay, advertising is what I thought I would do. And then I figured that advertising essentially is just communication, right? It's just one part of a much larger piece that branding entirely is. Right. And I was very keen on the business metrics side of things.
Okay.
And which is why I made the switch to marketing. And when I went to Mattel, I understood that your when you manage a brand, you sort of are an entrepreneur in a larger company.
Right.
You own the P&L, you own the direction, you own the strategy that you're going to be driving for that particular brand. You own everything that happens around it. And that sort of at a young age gives you a lot of onus. It gives you a lot of ownership. It also puts you under a lot of stress because there are a lot of questions to be asked. You're always being scrutinized. Each of your campaign is always being questioned and scrutinized, right? Like everybody and their dog has an opinion about the kind of creative or campaign that you put out. So
Right.
that's the beauty and terror of being in marketing. That usually happens. But yeah, it's been a really interesting space to be in. And that's where I was. And then while I was, so Mattel is a fairly polished company and the brands are pretty well known. So the only kind of changes that you could make were in the business, and the business was impacted very significantly by the initiatives that I led. And at that point, I felt that, I see a lot more happening outside. Just like, when I was in advertising, I felt this FOMO saying that, okay, brands are really growing very, very quickly. There's a lot happening outside, and all we're doing is putting out TV campaigns and creatives and writing scripts and putting out artwork. That's the same kind of FOMO that I had when I was in Mattel, when I said that, okay, tech is completely changing the world. Tech is changing the way we communicate, and I don't know if I can really, if I see myself having a job in 10 years, if I continue doing what I'm doing. So that's when I made the switch to Hotstar.
Okay.
And Hotstar, I think, as a business, like a D2C business, a direct-to-consumer business, really changes your worldview.
Right.
Because nowhere else do you get direct consumer feedback the way you do in a D2C business. And you have a daily, when a traditional business you put out, and there's a lot that you can influence between your, your business metrics, between your consumers and yourself. You have multiple channels. You can run distributor discounts. You can run, X, Y, and Z to make sure that you're still delivering on your numbers. But in a direct-to-consumer business, it's the consumer at the other end that who's finally purchasing your product. And whatever you put out in front of them is being accepted or rejected right in front of you. So that's real-time feedback. And that's a great space to be in. It's also a very stressful space to be in, so which is why it's so fast-paced. And so that was a great experience. I was in Hotstar, where we had one of the biggest years in 2019, which was IPL and the ICC World Cup.
Right.
Those were the biggest consumer moments that were that had to happen in 1 year. So I think the kind of learning that I had, and probably the entire team had, in the kind of strategies we took, the approaches we took, the kind of communication we put out, we could really tell whether it worked or not, whether it was working or not. And in most cases, with any subscription business, you because there's a daily target or there's a daily sub number that you need to achieve. You sort of know that if you you change this creative and put out this, that you've made an impact, and that kind of feedback is priceless. So so that's been my journey, and since then I joined Google earlier this year, and now I'm on the other side, where I tell people how to sort of run campaigns and run creatives, and this is a much larger space because I see players across industries, across businesses, who are doing exactly what I was trying to do at Hotstar or in Mattel, right? Like get more consumers at scale, get more consumers to buy a product. And because Google innovates quite a bit, they do so much in terms of best practices. They do so much data crunching around creative. It's just a very interesting space to be in.
Okay. At a larger scale, do you think people's reliance on Google is coming down?
In what way?
In what way? Okay. One, most people have started searching for answers directly on Quora, for example. Okay. Then if I'm starting to search over there, then my search volume on Google reduces, right? The second thing is there are these closed communities that are being formed, closed internet, so to speak, right? Like you have on one spectrum, you have the whole decentralized hippie crypto enthusiasts who are, um, going in that direction. That's one side. And the other side is this small private communities which are essentially creating their own knowledge graphs, right? So if I would rather trust the knowledge graph that my community is creating rather than, some algorithm that's going to show me, results on top page. Like, do you see something like that happening, or it's the other way around?
It's not happened at a scale yet where it's impacting businesses, because at the end of the day, they're all 1 billion consumer platforms, right? There are
Right.
1 billion users on a regular basis.
Right.
So I don't think, of course, there are niche communities and there will be competition at any given point in time. But as so far, there hasn't been an impact, at least on search. And it's not search. I mean, there's YouTube. There are many other platforms within
Right.
Google which sort of serve as a gateway to reach consumers, right? So in that sense, maybe when you say if a consumer's dependence on search has reduced,
Right.
we haven't seen that yet.
Right.
I mean, there might
But
be
there's also this influx of new people getting on the internet, so
Yes.
you won't see that impact right away. Right. Okay, great. Now, can you tell us this, because you talked about your interest in business metrics and how it was more like a daily number thing, so which could be stressful, but at the same time, I don't know, makes you think creatively. So can you tell us the process of, creating an ad copy, and then how does it flow from the copywriter to the designer to the editorial team, then to the distribution team? Like, can you tell us the process?
Yeah, sure. So so for digital businesses or for smaller businesses, I mean, there isn't really you have a marketing or a brand manager, who is sort of controlling the brand, who lays out the broad strategy or the brief. Okay, and the brief essentially entails two or three things. What is it that you're communicating? Who are you communicating to, and why are you communicating? And then, of course, what is the action that you want the consumer to take, right? So there's like a broad five W's and one H. Right? There's also when and where as to like which platform, which media, because your medium at the end of the day, most of the times is the message.
Right.
But those things and who the consumer is pretty much defined and influenced by the research that you've done. Of course, you have a product that's been built in mind considering an unmet consumer need.
Right.
So that's where you are with the product.
Right.
But if there's a particular hook or a sell that you have created basis insights that have come up, qualitative insights that have come up via research, that's when that's what you pick up, right?
Okay.
So and there are multiple. So it's, for example, it's the IPL. You're selling the IPL at the end of the day. But for us, it was about there were other ways to watch the IPL.
Right.
There were features within the app that could enable you to watch with your friends. So that's the feature, and that's the differentiator, right? Between watching an IPL on a larger screen versus why would you watch it on. So those are the few things. So you pick that hook and you pick the what you think will work for the consumer. You test it, of course, to see to check if that's what the consumer is really looking for, and that's the brief that you give your creative agency, right? And then your creative agency comes up with a creative rendition of that, right? And that's something that is, of course, if you have the time. For traditional businesses, of course, they'll test it out. There is, you will do copy tests. You will do, if you go ahead and shoot the film, you will do a link test, or you will check how, at what points are the consumers responding. In digital businesses, it's pretty simple. I mean, you'll test it out, but you'll do like an A/B test. You'll have 2 or 3 different versions of the creative that you've made, and you'll put all of them out. And the 2 or 3 different creatives could be similar from a content or a subject matter perspective, but the call to actions might be different.
Okay.
The opening sequences might be different because they say on digital or on video, this is specific to video, that you need to land your message within the first 5 seconds,
right?
And your brand within the first 5 seconds, because that's the attention span.
Also, I can skip ads after that.
Yes, correct. And even if you run non-skippables, I mean, that's on YouTube, but on other platforms. I mean, Facebook has a completely different, it really, then again, your medium really matters, right?
Right.
So while you can run longer duration ads on YouTube, you can on Facebook as well, but they recommend that the consumption is on the move and on the go. You're sort of skimming through while you're walking, and while it's a lean back environment. So you need to make sure that your ads are no longer than 15 seconds, because that's the ideal. So, I mean, how do you tell your story and how do you crunch your message in those, in those 15 seconds is what you. So those are some of the things. And then, your creative, your A/B test finally decides how consumers are responding to it. And that's your video, and then which is your brand message that's put out. And then your performance creatives again have the same sort of, your performance creatives or your remarketing creatives that you do, which you essentially reach consumers who've seen your ad with different types of copy. And there are multiple ways to do it. On Google or on YouTube, you can actually figure out what kind of personality the consumer fits in. So what kind of digital persona this person has, right? So is it someone who's interested in luxury travel? Is it somebody who's interested in outdoor travel? Those are kind of insights that you have around the users that you're reaching. So there are multiple ways of doing it, and your retargeting can be that much sharper to say that, okay, you watched an ad that I put out saying that, here, this is IPL, and it's great because you can watch it with your friends. And if you want to customize it for someone who's looking for travel, you can sort of customize the message to say, hey, just like you enjoy traveling with your friends, why don't you watch IPL with your friends as well? It's just a bad example, but like that's, the creative agency does the heavy lifting in the copywriting.
Right. Okay, cool. So you talked a little bit about qualitative research, right? So this is like your typical focus group kind of a thing you're talking about?
Yeah, so there are different ways to do it. I mean, of course, you have your brand track. A brand track essentially is it's led by Nielsen or by other strong players, and they run a brand track for you, which essentially is a panel of consumers who tell you on different, and there are different parameters and different questionnaires that tell you that, okay, what do I think of this ad? What do I think of this brand? How have I heard about it? What is my purchase intent towards it? Will I ever buy it? What does it need for me to even consider it in my purchase basket? Things like that. So that's your essentially a report that you keep getting every 6 weeks to make sure that your brand is on track, literally on brand track.
Brand track.
And your qualitative research is dependent on your campaign, right? So you will put out your copies and your tests and everything, and then you will run it with the focus groups. And the focus groups could be geographically, I mean, depending on your sample size. So we've done focus groups where we picked up mothers in, say, 6 or 7 cities, and we've shown them, say, 5 different ads from different toys, and said that, okay, which one of these are the ones that you would consider? Which of these are the ones that you remember? And within that, we've shown them, like a new ad that we're going to put out.
Okay.
So things like that. I've tested a creative, concept with kids as well, and it was hilarious because I think for Hot Wheels, we were trying to do something. I think the theme was that, while you love playing with cars, I think what boys enjoy more or kids enjoy more is crashing the cars. And that was the creative direction or the thought. And the different scenarios that we've created around it is that you can innovate around it. We were trying to look for, I think the key business objective was to find more ways to play with Hot Wheels, rather than just, apart from the track set, or how do you play, how do you use the track sets more? And the different themes that we created were that, okay, you could create your own sort of experiment. You could crash it into things because that's what kids enjoy doing. And that came up from research as well. Like the mothers complained all the time that the boys just keep crashing the car. And so we tested this concept with kids where the car is crashing into an egg, the car is crashing into a bunch of blocks, etc. And I think 2 or 3 of the kids, I think it was like a 20 kid panel, and they said, "Oh, but I can't do this because I'm not allowed to eat eggs." So I mean that's enough to sort of tell you that okay, those are also things that that kids consider or that the consumer might think of.
Mm.
Because at the end of the day, they're going to see it as a message for them. Like, do I identify with this message, or is it something that I do I see myself doing this,
Mm.
or do I see myself using the product the way it's intended to?
It's kind of like that the Mortein coil where the tongue comes out and it like licks the mosquito away. Like when we were kids, like that was the thing, and then like my dad bought this, and I was like, Dad, like it's broken. It's not jumping. It's not like going and catching the mosquito. Huh.
Yeah, exactly. So that I think that was a nice way to break clutter. That was a nice way to make sure that people remember Mortein. And it also helped them sort of non-commoditize something that is, I mean, it's just a mosquito coil, right? They gave the mosquito coil a personality, which I thought was due credit to them for doing that.
Yeah, definitely. Like, okay, so especially, I mean, not just Hot Wheels, in your entire career till now, are you proud of like the ads that you have created? Like, and if you had to pick one, what would that be?
Okay. Yeah, I think when I was in Ogilvy, we worked on quite a few things I worked on Cadbury Dairy Milk. Actually, yeah, I'm not very proud of those ads that we did with Amitabh Bachchan. They're very forgettable. But I'll tell you about the last ad that I did before I left Mattel. And it was a very small-ish ad. That insight was based around, I think it came up because so Barbie is a controversial product for a brand, right? Because they think that I mean, it's very loved and very hated as well. Like it sits somewhere in the middle, and because it has all these things about body image issues, etc., etc.
Right.
Yeah, and there are multiple ways to look at it, but the approach that the brand was taking on at a global stage. And you might have seen the campaign that they did, which was called "You Can Be Anything." So "You Can Be Anything" is or imagine the possibilities. I'm forgetting what it's called. Which is that a toy essentially allows a child to imagine, right? And that's what Barbie allowed children to be, or girls to imagine what they could be in the future. And we also knew that parents or mothers specifically sort of live vicariously through their daughters or through their children. So with those two insights, we ran this sort of engagement campaign with mothers where we said that, if you have a dream or if your daughter has a dream, we can make it come true, or we can let her live her dream for a day, right? And so mothers wrote to us on Facebook. I think we ran it on 2-3 different platforms. And they wrote to us saying that, okay, my daughter wants to be a gymnast. She wants to be a comedian. She wants to be a chef. And we picked 3 winners, and we set them up. So, the girl who wanted to be a gymnast, we got like, a Commonwealth gymnast to train her for a day. There was a girl who wanted to be a comedian. We got Uruj Ashfaq to sort of just jive with her for a day again. And those moments were then shot and then put out. Because at the end of the day, it was all about you can live your dream when you imagine things, right? And it was just a more positive spin on a brand that's perceived to be shallow and brainless, or whatever Barbie's considered to be. And it was and the core thought behind it which we try to push into the community is like, let kids be and do what they want. Because it's not, I think it's your sort of preconceived notion that you're trying to impose upon them. So I think that is my favorite campaign. There are a couple that I did for Hot Wheels as well, but they were smaller. But yeah, this is the one that I cherish.
Lovely. So so you keep talking about these insights, right? Like, so for example, during Hot Wheels, you talked about, why do boys like to play with cars? Because they want to crash it, right? Like, that's an insight. And the second thing is, now you said, like, this you're just like giving out in like one sentence, but I'm like sure like a lot of time has gone into coming out with that, right? And second thing right now you just said was most of the time moms like try to live vicariously through their kids, like through their and the Barbie doll thing. So what was the one insight that was most surprising to you?
Um, I don't think there's anything that took us by shock or surprise in any of the insights. But you know, some of these things are really hard to get to in a particular conversation.
Hmm.
So there hasn't been something that has been earth-shattering that's been revealed in
Okay. Okay.
in any of our researches. It's pretty much you sort of have an idea, but the point is that when you hear it from the consumer,
Hmm.
sort of help to articulate it. You're able to articulate it better creatively in
Right.
your application. That's
Right.
also it's all about what the consumer can tell you that can help you personalize the message better to the user or the
Hmm.
creator.
Right.
This is not. I mean, this wasn't a shocking insight, but I'll tell you because we did this study for cartoon characters, and I was managing a brand called Thomas and Friends, which is Thomas the Tank Engine. It's a toddler brand that we were using, that
Okay.
we were researching, and and this was about preschoolers, right? So, and we asked mothers that they would let their child watch Chota Bheem,
Hmm.
but not why Thomas the Tank Engine, because that also teaches values, etc., etc. And there, I think they came back to say that "नहीं छोटा भीम से सीख मिलती है," or so, and that's what they said. They thought that the kids learn
Hmm.
good things by watching Chota Bheem, and that's when we knew that if we have to sort of sell Thomas in India, it has to be about the values that he brings to the table, not about the entertainment factor. The
But
kind
like, but your target is the kids, right? Like, and kids don't want to learn. It's the parents who want them to learn, right?
But the parent is the gatekeeper, right? So for a
Mm-hmm.
toddler, for like a 3-year-old, and 3 to 5-year-olds don't even have that amount of pester power that 7 to 8-year-olds have.
Right.
So with Hot Wheels and a Barbie, we had, we had two sets of campaigns to say.
Okay.
One was, my
Okay.
budget was pretty much split into half. One was shopper directed, and one was for the pester power pieces, which is activations and engagements that we would do to make sure that the kids knew what was new on the brand or in the toy space. And then
Mm.
there was one which was, on the more like the Barbie campaign that I spoke about was targeted at mothers. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
I don't know if the girls cared about, living their dreams, but because the girls loved Barbie,
Right.
but it was mothers who were sort of blocking the purchase.
Mm. Yeah. 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 That's true. Okay. So now, how do you think like these ad copies have evolved from the offline space into the digital world?
So with offline, I mean, your media is very limited, right? Like you
Mm.
have print ad, maybe you have, some amount of television,
Right.
and you have outdoor. So you have one key message, and then you put that out in 3 different places.
Mm.
With digital, I mean, it it's more democratic. So you don't necessarily always need ad copies or ad copies in the true sense, which is written word,
Mm.
because you go beyond the written word to voice, video, and vernacular is like is what is defining the Indian audience, right?
Mm.
More and more people are coming online, and more people have the capability of becoming a consumer because they are accessible by video. They
Right.
don't necessarily need to be literate, right?
Right.
And TV sort of solved that for a certain extent.
Mm. Mm.
So it comes down to how you can sort of break it down. Also, there are multiple other avenues on how to build a brand,
Mm.
right? Which is so. I'll give you an example. Brands like Planet Love and Love Planet and Beauty, which is a Unilever brand, has
Mm.
pretty much has been built on e-commerce, right? So over there, the e-commerce copy is what has got the consumer's attention,
Right.
right? That's what has built it. That's what it enabled it to become like 100 crore brand within say 1 or 2 years. The
Right.
same is the case with Mama Earth. So Mama Earth again is a niche brand, but they grew to 100 crore brand because they built their brand on social.
Right.
They didn't really go the TV route. They used digital.
Right.
They focused on the things that they knew that parents or mothers were worried about the fact that, baby products have parabens, baby products are harmful. Johnson's baby has been, is constantly under fire for some of the other products in their, some of the other chemicals in their products. And they made it very clear those are the things that they called out when they went to digital, right? So that's the different format. Search copies is another thing. When you write for search, then again you're customizing to each and every query that the consumer might be putting out. And that to me is a lot deeper than just like a singular brand copy that you put out, right? And while it is important, your fundamentals of communication, of course, remain constant. You need to spell out your value proposition for sure. You need to engage, you need to attract. Those are fundamentals that don't change between mediums. But it's just that your scope becomes a lot wider when you go beyond your traditional to digital media.
And your feedback is, of course, much faster.
Much faster, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, with search copies, I mean, if people are clicking and buying your product or not. It's the same with Facebook. I mean, it also depends on the consumer's mindset, right? Like he's coming to search to seek assistance. He's on Facebook to be engaged and entertained. He's on an Amazon because he wants to buy. So clearly your ad copies or your communication has to serve the the purpose that the consumer is there for.
Right. That's true. Yeah. So because like you're brought up in a military family, like do you read a lot?
Yeah, quite a bit.
Okay.
But it's mostly I think I stopped reading fiction a while back. But
that was my thing. Okay. Okay, so what kind of non-fiction books do you read?
So I think I wrote that in my form as well. I read Sapiens like a year or two ago, and then I sort of reread it a couple of times because I think it's sort of changed my perspective of how I think about the world. I read Outliers when I was really young. I think I was still in college, and at that time it was very inspirational because I said, okay, this is how successful people build their lives, and if I put in these many hours every day doing what I do best, then maybe I'll be the next Steve Jobs. Yeah, it's a little harder to put in practice for sure, but I think it was like a really great book overall.
That's true.
True. Why the connect with the military family though?
No, because like typically people with that background, they read a lot, and
we spend most of our time outdoors.
Sorry?
We spend most of our time outdoors.
Outdoors? Okay. Well, you can read outdoors as well. Then, I mean, right? So for someone, let's say, let's bring it back to the current scenario that we are in, right? Like buying behavior has gone down, right? And if you're an MSME, and let's say you're already on the digital space, okay? Now, if you haven't been there, then it obviously makes sense to, okay, now let's go digital, yada, yada, yada. But let's say you're already there, but then your products have lost sheen, or like probably people look at your product as a want and not as a need, so they're like delaying the purchase. So for someone like that, like what are 2-3 things that they can do digitally to, I don't know, bring back the confidence in the customer to come back and buy their product?
So, so MSMEs brought over, it really comes down to what the product is, if it's a commodity, if it's very run of the mill. And I am coming back to, smaller brands who built themselves. But these are the guys who did receive funding. So of course, money is important for everything. But so Epigamia is a great example, So Epigamia is a dairy product. There was Amul, they had to compete with everybody. But they found their niche. They found their niche as a protein snack, and they differentiated themselves from a dahi that Amul and whoever else was selling, right? And then once they did that, there are so many avenues now that you can build your brand in. Raw presseries is another. So I think it's about finding that niche which makes, and maybe it's a small set of consumers who value you
and need you rather than just want you. That I think that's where it begins. It all comes down to the product at the end of the day, because consumers are way smarter than us, right? And no amount of marketing is going to make them buy a terrible product. So
Mm,
it just comes down to the fundamentals of marketing. That is your product meeting an unmet need,
right.
right? Is it solving a consumer problem that they have or they don't even know that they have?
Mm.
So that those are a couple of things that are to be watched out for. I know it sounds very,
Broad. I mean, it's a broad question again. Like.
if you throw money at things, of course the problem goes away. But in opportunities, in cases where you don't have the money, these kind of
Mm,
fundamentals definitely stick with you. To as you grow faster. And there are multiple brands who are doing it right now. I mean, Purple is a great example. So Nykaa is great. It's received all the funding in life,
yeah.
but Purple's really built a base of mass consumers.
Great.
So I think it's about finding that niche, acquiring a small set of consumers and keeping them with you, and then that word of mouth sort of catches on.
That's true. Well, I was just trying to look at Purple. Anyway, can you remember at least one ad that you saw and you're like, man, like, I wish I had written that?
Oh yeah, I think in recent times, I think a print ad really was. I was really impressed by a print ad, which was done by Lifebuoy. So when COVID really hit the country, I don't know if you guys are aware of it,
Uh-huh.
but they put out a sort of PSA to say that COVID is here. It's dangerous, and please make sure that you wash your hands and wash your hands with Lifebuoy. I mean, you don't necessarily need to wash your hands with Lifebuoy. You can use Dettol, you can use etc. etc. I mean, they named all the brands that were available, all their competitors.
Mm.
That was something that struck out. I mean, I still remember it like 6 months down the line, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that was impressive, just the speed at which they executed it.
Right.
And in terms of a brand that I would have loved to write, I think all the Nike ads. I think
Oh, man.
they're just so bold, and they do. And typically, you know what you say is they break all the rules.
Right.
In creative, they say that like stock footage doesn't always work. They
Mm.
recently did an ad where they only used stock footage, and they just made it so beautiful.
Mm.
So I think they turn the all the limits of creativity on their head,
Mm.
and that's just top talent for me. They take controversial issues and they make them really. It gives you something to think about. So yeah.
Couple of questions from that. One, what do you think of this Vodafone idea ad? Quick
Which
thoughts. We want, sorry, bullshit.
one? I might not even have seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it. Okay, this is today they launched this V plus one I, V and I, because it's
I hate
Vodafone
the
and I.
logo. I haven't seen the ad yet, but I hate the logo.
Okay, yeah, okay, great.
So I haven't seen it yet. Yeah, I can. The ads that I have seen are, I think, only IPL ads right now. So,
Right. Okay. This so when you're talking about the Nike ad, you use the term bold. So now the question here is, have you written something really bold, like at the beginning of your career, and then like people asked you to like, hey, that's like too outlandish. We can't do this. We have to stick to our brand guidelines. Like, have you ever faced that?
I don't think I've played pretty safe.
Okay.
I think I've worked on like family.
Right. Good.
It's and that's the other thing, right? I don't think that every brand should be controversial and bold. I don't think that they should be controversial just for the sake of being controversial, right? And there are multiple opportunities. There are multiple events that happen. It's becoming fashionable to take a social stand, but I think you should know the limits of your own brand and of your own category, because nobody really cares if I don't know, a toothpaste brand is, taking a stance on Black Lives Movement. I mean, it's okay.
Right.
It doesn't. It should fit. The fitment is important. If it's incongruous, it's going to stand out for the consumer. It's definitely going to face a backlash. So
Right. Well, but I mean, So let's take this Barbie thing only, right? Like, so now people hate it, love it, and then like now you came out with a very positive thing, but there's also the other spectrum where you could have gone the other way and said, um, well, I mean, I don't know if that happened. Okay, anyways, I'm gonna put it out there, which is like, hey, this is who I am. Like, I am like this. I take care of my body. Like, fuck you, fabrics, right? Like, that's one way to, right? Of course, like, no brand is gonna accept that. But like, will it even be part of the discussion when you're sitting and talking about ideas?
Yeah, I think I don't know. Probably yes, But it's just about what is it that you want to drive? What your eventual, like, how do you want the consumer to feel at the end of the day? And a lot of, I think Abercrombie and Fitch did this. I mean, they took a very bold stance where they said that our products are meant for a certain body type,
Right.
and that body type was skinny and not plus size. And that was, I mean, they took that stance and they faced the heat for it. And did it work for them? I don't think it did. I don't think that
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
group of skinny people, like wanted to buy Abercrombie more because they felt it was for them. It just comes down to your brand at the end of the day. If you're promoting a wholesome brand, you have to be inclusive. You have to be, that's what I'm saying. You can't be abrasive for the sake of it. You can't create controversy for the sake of it. If
Also,
if it fits within your realm of things. So when Nike took in Colin Kaepernick, for the Black Lives, right after the Black Lives Movement protest that he did, that was very controversial. But it worked for them. And it fit very well with the brand, and they were conscious of that. Of course, they faced outrage over that as well from a certain section of society, but they did not care for that section of society. They were making that step change, for where they saw that the overall sentiment was going, and that's the stance that they took.
I also really like what you said about how, at the end of the day, it really comes down to how you want your consumer to feel.
Yeah, I mean, the consumer central to everything, and customer obsessed businesses are the ones that do the best, right? Like, if at the end of the day, everything that you do, every single step that you put in marketing and product has to result in some positive influence in the consumer's life. That's the only way you grow business. And that's becoming very, very clear, because I spoke about instant feedback, right?
Yes.
Like, they vote with their dollars, not the way they vote with their money.
So now this just one question, but this was a great thing. We could have ended on this, but I really want to ask this. So this Lifebuoy thing, when they use the competitor brands and said, just wash your hands, it doesn't have to be ours. Now I see this happening with like Netflix, using Hotstar and Tinder. So this brand communications online has improved a lot, right? Like, instead of being a competitive thing, it's more like a playful tit for tat kind of thing is happening. What do you see that as well?
Yeah. I mean, this banter is so it's a great engagement tool. I think it started off very organically on social media. I think because it happened internationally with like
Wendy's.
Wendy's and some biscuit partner, some biscuit brand, and a couple of others. It sort of came together to set up a tea party. Right. And that was it. It's just that it engaged. It increased engagement amongst the consumers. It was just a nice, healthy, wholesome thing to see. So it's just a more wholesome approach to things. Of course, you can you can be sassy on the internet, and those are the kind of steps that you take depending on what your brand stands for. So Hotstar is edgy. I mean, they think of themselves as edgy, which is why they would put out more edgy, more instigating sort of messaging. I mean, it's playful, but it's sort of it stings a bit. That's the kind of message that they would put out. But in Netflix is very wholesome. Like, they are not in their social media and their social communication, everywhere that you see, they're very happy to sort of engage with an Amazon Prime and say, hello, please tell us when Mirzapur 2 is going to be launched. And an Amazon 2 will come back saying, I mean, those are the kind of things that they do. I think it just comes down to what kind of a brand you are. And it's sort of become a gimmick now because I've seen it in marketing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
within say like, within like say companies, if there are different brands, they will sort of sort of decide, okay, who's going to tweet what and what the response is going to be. A lot of it is sort of forced now, but it's all right. It's all great in terms of works for engagement. So.
Right. Okay, so one final question. Okay, that's it, and then like we'll open it up. Okay, so this is about this is something that I've been thinking about quite a lot in the last few months, which is about personal branding or the brand, right? Like you look at people like Elon Musk or like Naval Ravikant. These guys are trying to build personal brand, whether they like it or not. It has happened like that, right? And now, though, you see a lot more Silicon Valley founders who are like trying to create cult, either around their brand or around themselves. Okay, and that's being followed as a strategy, right? Like cult as a marketing strategy. Okay, like creating a cult of people around your brand, right? Where do you see this trend growing? And like when brands become more human-like, right? Like that's what we just talked about in the last sentence. So where is this going?
So, since you mentioned cult, I mean, I can think of the biking brands because they created this community or this cult of
Peloton.
Sorry.
The biking brand, right?
Biking community, yeah. I mean, so I think they are the ones who started it because they wanted to make it exclusive and they wanted to make it. It's the opposite of being all inclusive and being saying that this brand is for everyone. Or we are for everyone. It's the complete opposite of that, and it works in certain cases. I know when you're talking about the head of tech companies sort of branding themselves, and I'm assuming you're talking about Elon Musk, and they add to the value of the entire brand, right? So someone wants an edgy, really really dangerous sort of a brand. I mean, those are the ones that they will gravitate to.
Right.
I don't see it happening entirely in consumer brands, though. I don't, there are people who sort of, disassociate themselves, at least CEOs who will disassociate themselves from brand because they believe that their brand is bigger than them.
Correct.
I think those are the brands that will survive. I don't think that building brands on a single person's personality, unless it's Kentucky Fried Chicken, really works. I mean, that's the kind of mascot you built, right? I don't know if it will work for consumer brands, honestly.
Right.
Because I mean, how many fans can one individual have?
Yes.
Like you have some tech bros who'll be really, really, who'll be really great fans of Elon Musk. But beyond that, I mean, it really, if you want to open up your market to other users or more users, then it's sort of restricting to just have Tesla associated only with Elon Musk and nothing else.
Okay. Well, I see a little bit of selfishness there, but it's okay. I mean, we want brands to exist, right? So this is a personal question. So, okay, this is about your, I climb mountains for fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So, no, it's this thing I do like I'm not, I need a goal to work towards. Otherwise, I'll pretty much not move. I have a pretty healthy metabolism. Otherwise, the amount that I move, it's like I hate exercising. I hate working out. So it's this personal goal that I started to set for myself to say that I will do one high altitude climb every 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
And started it off with my friends when we did Everest Base Camp, because a high altitude climb is something that requires training. And for a fact that if you don't train, for months, you're going to have a very hard time when you're doing the actual climb. So it keeps you grounded. It gives you a goal, something to work towards, and it gives you sort of that mental strength also that you build towards. So I did Everest Base Camp. I think 2 years ago I climbed Kilimanjaro, and the next one, which was the highest peak in Russia that we were going to do, Mount Elbrus, was supposed to be this year, which is now being pushed to next year. So I don't climb mountains like every year. I do treks and everything in the middle. but it's just a nice way for me to have a goal to be motivated towards, and I think it does a lot more for my mental fitness than in addition to my physical fitness.
All right. Lovely. Thanks a lot for inspiring us, both on professional and personal side. At least I was. Okay. So, guys, do you guys have any questions? We have been writing ad copies the last 2 weeks at least. If you guys have any questions, unmute yourself or you can put it in the chat also. Okay.
Okay, yeah, I have a question. Hi, Purva, this is Giridhar here, and thanks a lot for sharing your insights. So one thing that really caught my attention is when you said voice, video, and vernacular. So there's a lot of population that is increasing in the tier 2, tier 3 places, right? And with respect to the digital strategies, how differently are you targeting with respect to approaching the consumers or targeting the consumers in these markets? Or are there any other innovative tools or innovative strategies that you're kind of implementing to target these consumers? For the last 10 years or 15 years, there's already a lot of ad copies that are going on the television side, but on the digital side is something new, right?
Yeah.
I would like to get some kind of insights on that.
Sure. So, like I said, like digital is a completely democratic platform, right? You can reach whoever you want, whenever you want, at a moment in time when they're looking for a product or they're interested in receiving your ad. So if your question is, are you targeting the metro audience differently and the tier 2 audience differently? That is a possibility. I don't see brands doing it yet. And I keep going back to IPO, sorry, because it's top of mind for me. So they don't have a different set of communication when they reach a metro audience versus, because the copy or the communication or the ad that they're putting out is pretty much rooted in human spirit. It does not necessarily mean anything different to someone who's living in Allahabad versus someone who's living in Mumbai. So communication-wise, nothing's changing. What is changing is the different ad formats. So when I say vernacular, you are going more local. You're making sure that you're not putting out an English ad in Tamil Nadu. You're making sure that you're running vernacular search copies. If you're running performance campaigns, if you're running app campaigns, all of those have the capability to be customized in multiple languages, so that you know that you're communicating in a language that the user is willing to receive. So those are the kind of strategies, and that's very easy to do on digital. You can definitely sort of, break it down and identify. You can even identify for a subscription client, you can even identify where are my subscribers actually sitting, like which market, which city is giving me most reach or most conversions, and you can go heavy on them. You can go specific on them. There are platforms like the Google marketing platform where you can do moment marketing. And so if it's raining in a particular city, you can say, okay, it's raining, watch the IPL. I mean, just, just a bad example, but like how can you make your message more contextual to the user in their current frame of mind is something that's completely possible on digital right now.
Okay. I mean, I'm just like curious, why aren't the brands innovating with respect to, kind of targeting or sending out different communications to the rural segment and the urban segment? I mean, just so like having thought about it, I'm sure like the big brands would have thought about that, right?
No, it really depends on. So of course there is a rural campaign. So so there are campaigns that are run specifically for rural audiences. So they will do. I'm talking about one singular campaign that targets both metros and rural. You don't necessarily make two different types of creatives, but there might be different objectives. So for example, a platform wants to get more rural audiences onto to log on a certain platform or a certain OTT. They can completely run a different communication or a differentiated communication for them.
Okay. I have another question, but then it's not related to the ad copies though, since
No, not that.
One question
that we can talk later. That's a business idea, basically. Okay.
No, it's not a business idea. I'm talking about the Hotstar aspect of it.
Oh, okay. I'm good. But before that, Anvesh should ask a question. I think that's
Yeah, go ahead.
I also want to know. So Google Neighborhood. Is that
Okay.
Neighborhood? You remember that app?
I don't know. I'm sorry.
You don't know?
No. It must be in the Google graveyard. I have no idea.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, what was the strategy to take it to community? What are the learnings of the app's failure to get active users?
I'm sorry. I don't know what this product is or was.
Okay. So basically, it's like hyper local. Okay. So if I'm in Koramangala and Bangalore, then Google Neighborhood is about just Koramangala. You know,
Okay.
I can say like, what's the best place to go and eat, and then so they rolled it out as a separate app. I liked it, but then
Yeah, there are multiple ones that they've experimented with. A newer one is something called Google Spot.
Spots.
Yeah, so which is, I mean, they debuted it in, in the Google for India last year, where they said that essentially every retailer can become an e-commerce retailer. Like your neighborhood kirana dukan can become an e-commerce retailer because he can upload pretty much everything that's there in his shop, and you can select whatever you want and go and pick it up at a time convenient to you. That's what was demoed. I don't know where it's at in terms of the rollout and all of that, but yeah, thanks for this. I did not know that. Maybe it was like a like a phased rollout that was done.
Right. I think they kind of got into jobs now. Like
Yeah.
Right?
Spot is part of that. So jobs, etc., is also part of that. I mean, it's at the end of it, it's about how can you get more and more, like how can you solve more use cases, or how can you solve more consumer problems so that you get more consumers. I see you being very, you don't believe me at all.
No. I mean, it does, like, definitely. But like, why everyone on Google? That was the thing. Okay. Well, that's not a way, man. Until people realize data ownership. Okay, cool. Moving on. Giridhar, the question about Hotstar, or anyone else have other questions? Giridhar, you can ask. Sorry, I thought it was that video idea that you were talking.
It's about I mean, so basically my question is, since Hotstar is already it was already prominent over here, what are the different strategies they were implementing to penetrate the rural mass again? That is the tier 2, tier 3 segments, and since even the internet TV penetration has been a little hampered that side, what is it that they are kind of what are the strategies that they are using?
Here's the thing about AVOD businesses, right? Like, or Hotstar. I mean, are you talking about what they're doing right now to penetrate further into rural markets?
Yes.
Yeah.
Last 2 years, 2-3 years.
So it all comes down to what kind of content they had, and the kind of content they had was IPL, which is pretty much like the what unites all of India, right? And so for that, they had specific campaigns, and like you said, they'd broken their advertising and their segments down by geographies that they wanted to get more users from. So it was all about so this was last year when they wanted to get all these users onto Hotstar to watch the IPL. Other thing that they did, honestly, and that's the easier or tougher piece, is a Jio partnership, because because that's like that's like the hallmark of internet for like all Indians, or the newer set of Indians who are coming onto the internet. So that partnership opened up a lot of doors for them. That's the short answer for what you're trying to say.
And most probably it will be on the mobile platforms itself, as in like
yeah. But that was last year. It's not going to be the same this year, because that's no longer the strategy. So it's not about getting people to watch the IPL for free, or watch. Even last year, I think it was about 10 minutes free, and then you had to sort of refresh the browser and watch it again and again. All of IPL is behind the paywall this year, because it's about getting people finally, after growing this consumer base on sort of like free content. It's time to monetize it. And that's what most businesses that's the route that most businesses will go to. Like, the freebies aren't going to last forever, because your tech costs are a real thing, right? Your cost of stream is a real thing. And if once businesses start focusing on profitability, you will realize that you can't keep supporting certain business practices.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions, guys? We'll wait for 5 seconds.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You said that you were marketing Hotstar as an edgy brand. How are you doing that? Was it with respect to the content or
As a what brand?
Hotstar
an
as a
edgy?
brand.
As an
Edgy, like.
edgy brand. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. No. I was not marketing Hotstar as an edgy brand. I'm saying that that's essentially the brand personality overall, and I say that by virtue of the fact that they used to conduct themselves on social when they had all these sort of when we're talking about what do you call the brand engagements that were happening on the channel on social platform. Yeah, otherwise, I mean, for a subscription service, I mean, the communication was pretty wholesome. It's family. You watch it with your, watch it whenever you want, etc., etc. It's just about the personality that a brand puts out on their social media sort of defines who they are. And at that time, I know this because I've been in the org, and I know that they consider themselves slightly more edgy than their competitors or risk takers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. The marketing would never be the marketing would never be in a manner to sort of isolate anyone.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Any other questions, guys? Rishabh? Okay, yeah.
Hi. I have a two-part question. First question related to the OTT space specifically. If you see Alt Balaji per se, right? They are focusing on Hindi original space. Like they are focusing on producing. They're focusing on producing Hindi original content, right? And like the content was different. OTT platforms produce, they are completely different. But ultimately, they are going for the same market capitalization, market share, right? So the question is, what do you think is the future for them? Because firstly, now Hotstar is also backed by Disney, Amazon and Netflix. They are also backed by. They are also. So what do you think is the future for these Balaji, ZEE5 Premium, Vodafone Play also in that case? So that's the first question.
Yeah. So I think original content and OTT platforms was like the gold mine that everybody sort of chanced upon was like the gold rush that everybody chanced upon in 2018, and that's going to soon consolidate because I spoke about I spoke about profitability of businesses, right? Content is an expensive game, so investment and purchasing content is really a drain on your finances. So and you can, if you don't make up that revenue somehow, you aren't going to survive as a business. So companies that have been running so far are backed by larger businesses. So ZEE5 is backed by ZT, which is the broadcast business. Hotstar is now backed by Disney. Earlier it was backed by Star, which is again the richest TV business. The smaller ones, India currently has about 38 OTT apps. That long tail is going to get wiped out at some form, or it's going to get consolidated. MX was one such, and then Times bought it out, and now it's sort of the largest AVOD player in the space. So till there is influx of money, I mean, there are two revenue streams that businesses have, right? One is ad funded, which is to say that I, as an OTT platform, have X million users watching me every day for these many minutes. So come advertise on me instead of going on to Star TV or ZTV. What's happening with COVID is that those ad funded, those revenues are shrinking because businesses don't have money anymore, because they've had a very bad year. So most businesses are in fact pivoting to subscription, which is to get the consumer to pay for content on it. All right. So the sense is that subscriptions will grow. If you look at the Statista numbers, we are projected to have about 46 million subscriptions. There's an entire report by BCG which talks about how there are going to be about 50 million subscribers within the country by 2023. I think we'll hit that number just way earlier. We'll hit that number next year. So the scope of subscription and subscribers will grow because people will pay for content. But the same study also says that a subscriber will not pay for more than 2 or 3 subscriptions. So then it comes down to the average revenue per user that we are talking of.
Right.
So when that happens, you will not have the larger, you will not have this long tail of businesses unless they have they have a funding influx from somewhere, because they'll either run out of content or they'll run out of money. And if they're not pivoting to the subscription model, they can't really keep up their revenues. So that's what's going to happen with them. Alt Balaji, because it's a production house, they still have the potential to sort of sell their content to other players, which they're doing right now. They have a partnership with ZEE5, where all of their content releases on ZEE5 as well, in addition to Alt Balaji, because ZEE5 has a larger base. So people will figure out a way to sort of monetize their content. But the platform and the tech investment is really heavy. I doubt many OTT platforms will live to see another 2 odd years. So there will be mass consolidation. I mean, short answer to your question.
Okay. The other question what I had was related to IPL and particularly to Hotstar. So right, if you go back 2 to 3 years down the line, watching IPL on Hotstar was free. But then like lately last year also, and last year, they were playing with the time factor of it. Like it was 14 minutes initially. You can watch 14 minutes of free content, and then they automatically reduced it to 7 minutes if I'm not wrong. So was that a particular strategy which you used so that you can gain more subscribers?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what it is. It's last year, Jio users could watch the IPL for free. Now, Jio users themselves like number in millions and millions, which pretty much meant that a significant number of viewers watch the IPL for free. And the IPL is a very expensive property. At some point, people do need to recover the monies sunk into the sport, and which is why now it's moving towards a subscription or behind a paywall. So you can watch 5 minutes for free, but if you want to watch beyond that, you have to pay for it. And which is why they, again, I mean, comes down to the consumer offer that they have, which is they have a $3.99 pack. And they say there is IPL, there is originals, there's movies, there's TV, there's all of this content sitting behind the paywall, and all you have to do is pay 399 rupees. So that's the proposition that Hotstar is making this year to users, and their campaign and their plan is also like really heavy acquisition that they want to do. And in a similar fashion, I mean, the others also, like a ZEE5 and the others also make similar plays to say that for 99 rupees a month or for 6.99 a year, this is all that you can get. This is all the premium content that you can get on ZEE5. And then, of course, you have you have all the benefits of a subscription service or of an OTT. The fact is that you can watch on demand, you can pause, you can play, you can replay, things like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I'd one more last question. So, for example, whenever you do some marketing campaign, so do you calculate the CAC, cost per customer acquisition?
Yeah, of course. Your cost of acquisition is I mean, in a digital business right now is the holy grail. You look at the scale and you look at the CPS, the cost per subscriber overall. What businesses are not doing right now is looking at LTV, because in subscription models, and if you read Netflix reports, you'll see that they're very focused on LTV, because on the lifetime value of the consumer. They have calculated their lifetime value of the consumer to be about $200, okay, which is great, because so if you spend $50 in acquiring a consumer, it may sound expensive at at first go, because a Netflix subscription costs only like $15 or $13, whatever, but the lifetime value is actually much higher. That's not something that the Indian players are doing, because the industry is still very nascent. So that's where the industry is going to grow. And hopefully they'll look at a more holistic, more profitable approach to their business, which is to look at the cost of acquisition to the LTV versus just cost of acquisition in isolation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. No more questions. Okay.
Yes, I'm hungry.
Thanks a lot, Pooja. This was really interesting. I really enjoyed it. And we'll keep you posted about this Mag Levitate, the events that we are trying to do with respect to growing. It's mostly around SMEs and MSMEs. All right.
Yeah.
Do you have any final thoughts? Did we miss asking any questions?
I don't know. I don't think you asked any of the questions you sent me.
I know, because
think
our conversation was going in a good direction.
Yeah, conversation got hijacked by Hotstar and IPL and Google and the other things, which is great because those are the things I like to talk about.
Right.
So, but yeah, this was pretty interesting. I think the only comment I had was when I read the blog and everything, when I said that one ad copy that sold X million units, and I said those were really simpler times. I mean, maybe you could put out one single ad copy of 4 ads and you could sell that much. Unfortunately that world doesn't exist anymore.
Correct.
And so yeah, it's a new world. It's more challenging and it's definitely more fun.
So basically having a mindset of a researcher, looking at things from an experimental perspective and quickly iterating would help, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Thanks a lot, Pooja. Lovely talking to you. And we'll keep you posted about the community activities.
Sure. All right. Thanks, guys. Nice to
Thank
meet
you. Thanks, guys.